3 days after Christmas, December 28th, 1958, the New York Giants hosted the Baltimore Colts in what many consider to be the most important football game in the history of professional football. The Giants had a number of stars who were the darlings of Madison Avenue. Quarterback Charlie Connerly, running back Frank Gifford, who just passed away. Uh, they were a team that drew a lot of advertising money and were good enough to be the class of the National Football League, who was making the transition from being a Philadelphia-based league to a New York-based league. They knew that television was the future, and they knew that money was going to come in if they could figure out how to tie that all in, and having a successful team in New York was going to be the best way to do that. You just show them you have a very good product. The Baltimore Colts were they were a new team. They weren't established like the Giants, who came around in the mid-20s. It was a second team that was called the Colts. They they came around in the mid-50s and started to show some signs of life in 1957, and were lucky enough to sign a kid cut by the Pittsburgh Steelers by the name of Johnny Unitas to quarterback. And Unitas was the all-American guy. He had the crew cut, the good kind of rugged country-style looks, was very soft-spoken, and man, could he throw a football. So on this day, on this cold, gray, late December afternoon, these two teams met for the championship of the National Football League. And what happened, which made it just from, besides it being a very good game, was this was the first time that a captive audience on NBC television saw a game go past regulation. All regular season games, regardless if it was college or professional, were done after 60 minutes. If they tied, they tied, so what? You just move on to next week. But a championship game going into extra time was a new concept. The idea of you play till somebody finishes was brand new. And the Colts happened to be the team that won that game, which probably was to the benefit of everyone involved. Not that the Giants wouldn't have been a popular win, but the Colts, behind Unitas and Raymond Berry, who's one of the best receivers ever to play the game, and Lenny Moore and Alan Amici, just became the other stars. And Baltimore, which, the Giants had to share the stage in New York with the Yankees. In fact, they played at Yankee Stadium. The Colts shared with the Baltimore Orioles, but the Baltimore Orioles were nowhere near as successful as what the Yankees were. The Orioles had barely finished above 500, I believe, in 1958, and wouldn't seriously contend for a title until 1960. So the Giants grew. While the Giants grew on New York, the Colts became the toast of Baltimore, and that spread around the country. And so that's why this is one of the greatest games ever played. We're about to simulate this game, replay it between the Colts and the Giants from Yankee Stadium on that 28th of December, 1958. And it won't be blacked out in New York like it was in 1958. If you're living in New York City, you can actually watch this game as it happens, or watch it later on YouTube. They will meet at 2 o'clock on that Sunday afternoon to see if Baltimore can pull off that win again, and will this game be just as good as that first one, because it really changed after that. Baseball was the de facto national sport along with college football, with the NFL running third or fourth. Home games were blacked out, so no one in New York would have been able to see the game, any home game, on television. The regular season games were on CBS television, while the championships game was on NBC. So as it grew in popularity, if your team was playing at home, you didn't see a game. Or if you lived in Chicago, which had two teams at the time, you saw, I think, 3 or 4 games all season, because either the Bears or the Cardinals were home. So that game was a turning point. And if we're going to do a series of games considered to be the greatest games never played, I think you really need to start with this, because this is what started football as the national passion. What happened on this afternoon on a fertilizer-covered field in the Bronx has turned into the biggest sport in the history of American professional sports. So let's get to it. When you see the next screen, I'll be calling the action from the stadium and hope that we all enjoy one of the greatest games never played.